Okay. Home faces east. It's a beautiful spring day. The water meter is out here by the curb. We do not have a parkway sidewalk. So this is where it's at. And this is the water meter and water pressure test. Now, I usually like to pick up a few spares while I'm at it, but this is going to be a relatively simple operation, and because we're missing some things. It's not necessarily good that it's so simple. Simple is not always better. This is your water meter. So that red sprocket right there, that's called a flow indicator, or a cheater wheel, or a cheater paddle, whatever you want to call it. That's very sensitive. If that's moving, fresh potable water is moving into your house. And that means that somebody's flushing the commode, or somebody's doing the dishes, or washing their hands, or it means that you've got a leak. A leaky flapper in the commode, or someplace else. But wherever it is, you've got a leak. And if you can't find the leak, it's someplace that you can't see. But today, that sprocket, it's not moving. So we have, fortunately, we passed the lawn sprinkler test. Excuse me, we haven't passed that, that's for sure. We passed the water meter test. Okay, this is the check valve for the lawn sprinkler system. Now, when this home was built, this lawn sprinkler system was installed, a main shutoff valve was not required. All we have is these isolation handles. But these isolation handles are nice and rusty. See that? Okay, not so good. If you cannot find a replacement handle for that, the valves, I mean, it might be time to replace the. What I'm getting at is that the lawn sprinkler technician is likely to encourage you to replace the whole check valve rather than service it. Obviously, it hasn't been serviced in the last year. It'd be nice if the floor was lined with gravel. I'm gonna leave that up so that I can get another picture of it. Now, speaking of lawn sprinkler systems, I cannot find a weather sensor for the lawn sprinkler system. And a lot of times they didn't install them, of a certain vintage. If I find one, I'll make note of it, but so far I haven't seen a lawn sprinkler system, irrigation system weather sensor. Okay, you can have drip hoses exposed as long as they're stapled every 12 inches. And, they're not. I mean, maybe so. They're stapled pretty good, but not every 12 inches. That's more like 24 or more. Another thing about it, it's acceptable that your irrigation drip lines are exposed. But what people sometimes don't realize is that you lose a lot of water to evaporation. If these lines were better buried, then you wouldn't lose that water to evaporation. So you're losing a lot of water to evaporation. Now, just like on the check valve, I didn't have a main shutoff valve. I'm not seeing a main shutoff valve for the water to the house. And sometimes there's just a rod in the bushes somewhere. Which, those are obsolete because they're so old. But I'm not seeing any. Now, this is consistent with all the exterior bib water faucets, is that they're not insulated and they're not supported, and we do not have vacuum breakers. Now, we're looking for between 40 and 80 psi. And a nice leaky, that's my gasket, not theirs, about 75 psi. It's alright. Turn that off. That's a little distressing. I guess my gasket's going bad. So we've got about 78 psi. That's okay. It's a little on the high side, but it's not too high. It's acceptable. Another thing that we're looking for that I haven't seen, I've only made one quick pass around the home, but another thing we're looking for is main sewer cleanouts. I'm not seeing any main sewer cleanouts. I'm not seeing a main check valve for the house. Main shutoff valve for the house, excuse me. The water supply lines are not insulated. The water bib faucets are not supported, and we do not have vacuum breakers for the water lines. Then on the sprinkler system, we got rusty handles. We do not have a main shutoff valve. We do not have a weather sensor. We're missing a few staples on the exposed irrigation, and just make note that the acceptable exposed irrigation is subject to evaporation, water loss.